All right, Brent. First topic of the day, Stephen A's comments about Steve Nash being hired as Brooklyn's head coach with no experience. Here's what Stephen A had to say. Let's listen to it.
The respect that he has around the league, his smarts, his intelligence, his basketball IQ. Steve Nash is a sensational dude. And if anybody deserves this opportunity, absent the experience that obviously he has as a coach, it is him. It happened for Steve Kerr, who had never coached on any level before, but he took over Golden State, and look at the job that he's done. Steve Nash is widely respected and loved by a whole bunch of people in the NBA, black, white, and beyond. Congratulations to him. He deserves it. I get it. But this ain't about him, what I'm about to say. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no way around this. This is white privilege. This does not happen for a black man.
Okay. I mean, it's obviously got a lot of people, talking. I don't agree with him. I think he's baiting. I think, he listed off all the reasons that Steve Nash is qualified for this job and then kind of backhands it with white privilege at the end of it. And there's a lot of coaches that were black, that have gone from a player or with no head coaching experience straight to being a head coach. Derek Fisher retired from the Knicks were his last team. Next day, OKC, and then straight to Knicks head coach. Jason Kidd retires, immediately a head coach. Doc Rivers went from broadcaster straight to head coach. Isaiah Thomas was in the front office, but then went to head coach. And I mean,
Magic Johnson,
another one. And we're talking no head coaching experience. So to say all the reasons that he thinks that he was a good pick and then to backhand it with it's just white privilege, I think is, in the climate that we're in right now, dangerous. And I don't think it's true in this instance at all. But, what do you think about this? Am I off base in saying this? What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, you just refuted his argument essentially just by saying it has happened for a black man before.
And recently.
But I think if you listen to the whole clip, when you get to the end of it, he does mention, if I were one of these guys like Sam Cassell or one of these other black ex-players or guys that are trying to do it the right way by going through the assistant coaching, G League, however far they've gone, to spend all these years, Patrick Ewing, all these years retired and still sitting on the bench and still can't get that one opportunity to move one step to the left or right to get head coach. He said, if I were one of those guys, this is how I'd feel. And so I believe he's just kind of speaking for these guys that are saying, what in the world can I do? What can I do to get one of these jobs opening? Now, I will say, we talked about the Black Father speech, about police. There's one other speech that we got that I don't know if everybody got, and it's not like my dad was an activist or anything. He's far from it. He was a preacher. But he did mention to us about being employed and saying that there is a stereotype about black people that is hard to overcome, which is that black people are angry. So you can't say anything, can't criticize us at all, or we're just going to go off on everybody. Or that black people are lazy, we're late all the time, or we don't, take our breaks serious, or, we just don't put in 100% at work. There's multiple stereotypes that employers, that he was telling us that employers will go by and will not pick you because that's what they believe you as other black people that they've experienced, or just the stereotype embody. And so he also said to get hired, you have to not be yourself. You have to go in and present yourself as someone that you're probably not. You speak proper, hold your head up, smile, don't give any kind of things that feel like it's going to be threatening or make people uncomfortable. You always try to make sure that the person on the other side is very comfortable with you. And then the next is to be promoted, you're going to have to work longer hours, twice as hard, twice as fast, and be better at twice better than the person next to you in order to get the next level promotion up. So the funny thing is it's kind of how I worked. When I worked in manufacturing, the controller would come up and put a list on the board. They call it a burnout list, which is the people in the plant that are working way too many hours. And I was the second person in the organization as how many hours I was putting in. Mm-hmm. But I believed it. And I've seen it, and I've seen other people deal with it. But I'll say there's two things that brings that thought process that he's putting out there. There's two things that I look at. There's the employer, the white employer that actually believes those stereotypes. They may have had one or two black people in the past, do something bad. And after that, they just look at it as, I can't trust black people, so I'm just not going to hire them in these certain positions that I need to have higher responsibility. Or you have, which I think is a very common one, is the comfortable zone. Is people tend to promote or hire who they're comfortable with. Like, for instance, in that same plant, there was a supervisor. The lines are underneath, and the supervisors sit on mezzanines that are higher. Mm-hmm. And so the supervisor would just overlook the line and call you on the microphone, things like that. And he had a department lead that was on the floor as well that did things. Well, this guy had 2 department lead jobs open. What he likes to do on his mezzanine is he likes to sit up there, look at some of the girls and the women that are working in the department, chat it up and yuck it up with the guys. It's kind of like boys' locker room up there. And that's the kind of things he'd like to do. If there was a racial thing he'd say, he may not drop the N-word or racial slur, but it's stuff you'd say without a black person present. You know what I mean?
Should we not be careful of grouping every situation into one pile, though? I mean, isn't that what people want? They want to be judged off of their actions, off of what they've done, right?
Right.
So in this situation, you still think this fall? Do you agree with Stephen A. that this is white privilege? I think that's what we're getting. I agree with a lot of what you've said, and a majority of what you've said, right. But we need to get to the point where we're looking at each individual and assessing that situation for equality versus globalizing a problem that people are fighting for now. But so I guess in this situation, this specific situation, do you agree with Stephen A. that this is Steve Nash's white privilege, or do you think that he was just a good fit for the job and he's, trying to use the movement as a whole right now to bait outrage?
I agree and disagree with that. This is one thing I used to tell my friends, that like people at work, they'd be like, I hate when black people pull the black card because they just want to get their way and want to do things or whatever. And I would say, well, have you ever fathomed one time in your mind that they actually believe what they're saying? That they actually believe that where there's smoke, there's fire, that he actually believes when he said that it may not be that he was just like, I'm just going to tell a lie right here to get clicks and get people to look at me.
Okay.
I believe he believes what he's saying. But one thing that he did was he got emotional about the hire, and then they put him on the air. So he wasn't able to fact check it. So he wasn't able to do like we did and look up and say, what about Doc? What about Magic? What about, Derek Fisher? What about, like you can't go on there and say that this has never happened for a black, because that's the first thing he said. Well, this would never happen for a black man.
Right.
And he's incorrect.
Recently. So, how many, I think the other thing that we should look at is how many white players have gone straight, or just white, let's just say white people. Okay. White coaches have gone from no experience to head coach. I wonder how often that's actually happened. I don't think it's that often.
I would say in the history of the NBA, it's definitely happened more than it has to black people. Just because there's 30 teams and there's 6 black head coaches or 7 black head coaches.
But do you think
so there's odds that it has happened, but I'm not saying that it hasn't happened for a black guy.
I think my point is 0 head coaching experience. How many coaches?
I don't think did Phil Jackson have any head coaching experience? When we watched The Last Dance, I don't think he did.
I believe he was an assistant. Okay, let's just say
coach.
coaching experience.
Yeah.
let's not even say head coach, right? Because that's not really fair either, right? Because they
Right.
retread. The NBA is infamous for just, throwing coaches back into it, right? So let's
Right.
say, I think, and I will look this up and put it on the screen for everybody to look at. I want to know how often, and let's just say the last 10 years, how many coaches that were white and black went from zero coaching experience straight to head coach.
I think it's a very rare thing in general. And I think that just like with Magic Johnson becoming head coach for the hot second that he was, because he didn't,
right.
he found out he didn't like it. The same reason Larry Bird got head coaching is because they were famous and known for their minds, just like Steve Nash when they played.
Right.
And so people just goes, even if he bombs, this guy is a national treasure. You know what I mean? Like we can get butts in the seats actually for a coach, where normally the players, and hopefully the players will respect things. And I think there's another part that he kind of messed up on, that is, if Kevin Durant said, I want Patrick Ewing, or I want Sam Cassell or something like that, they'd be the coach.
100%.
And he's been very, he's one of those players that's kind of finicky on who he plays for.
Well, Kyrie too, right?
Yeah, Kyrie. Yeah. They both have been known for that. And so it's known that Steve Nash had a good relationship with Kevin Durant when he was down in Golden State. And I think Kyrie's just jumping on board with what KD is vouching for him.
Right.
And I think that's more what the management is looking at than anything else.
Right.
Is that we got these two superstars who have been finicky. They've run coaches off. They blame coaches when things don't go right. Sean Marks did nothing wrong. And not Sean Marks, but
Vaughn.
Kenny Atkinson
or John,
did nothing
I was
wrong.
Say Jacques Vaughn too, because he was
and Jacques Vaughn
intern.
And did nothing wrong, but Kenny Atkinson got the boot. Kevin Durant was on the sidelines injured, talking about how he didn't like how he coached.
Yeah, he's like, he's not the guy. He's not the guy. Yeah.
And so I think in this particular situation, for sure, and the thing is it's rare in general. In the NBA, GMs don't pull the trigger like this unless it's something like, because it's Steve Nash. Because
right, that's why I'm saying,
because you don't. Yeah,
go ahead. I think that's why I think we have to look at each situation on and judge it on its own. Right. I think when you start lumping history into one decision, you take a step backwards. And in the development of, the equality push that I'm for, I'm on this. I know that some people are going to look at this and be like, shocking, the white guy doesn't think it's white privilege, right? Like, I already know that that'll happen. But I think that I've always, I grew up on military bases, so it was always a smorgasbord of people anyway.
Right.
So I've always just been taught you judge people based off of their actions. And on this specific action, I think that he was off base. I think that he was using the larger moment and the equality push to get a headline, and it worked. We're talking about it. I mean,
and I don't know if it's taking advantage of, the thing is that it's more taking advantage of, he actually has the ability to say it on the air.
Well, he's got the platform, right?
Right. Well, I mean, he had the platform 2 years ago, and if he felt that way before, I think he'd watch some of his words, because you just don't, throw that on there. But, Stephen A is also the same guy who a lot of black people were upset with when he got on Colin Kaepernick for that workout he did when he moved the location at the last second. And then he said the same thing. It's the same premise that I was just talking about. Stephen A said, if you want a job and the billionaire white guy is the person who's got to give it to you, it doesn't matter if you got blackballed before, if you did this or whatever. You go in there and you present who they want to see to get the job. If you're going to go grab a microphone and say, now it's up to you guys, he's saying you don't want a job. And that's exactly what my dad would have told me, is if you're going to go in there and throw it in their face and tell them, blah, F you, essentially now I proved to the whole world, they're going to be like, no, buddy, F you, because they still have the power if he's going to do that. So Stephen A, it's almost the exact same thought process actually is, if you want to make it as a black person here, you can't just go off and run off at the mouth. You can't just do all these things. You have to kind of present yourself to make people comfortable. You don't make them uncomfortable. And so he's kind of doing this the same way. It's just a different twist on it. Is something that's definitely he believes. But like you said, in this situation, I believe he's definitely off base, mainly because one, he didn't fact check himself. He just jumped on the air and started talking.
Say
which is
nobody.
It's what never happened to a black man.
But and can I say this? It's not even that. These are things that happened a long time ago. Like Derek Fisher's, it's recent history. Jason Kidd, recent history. You could go back to Isaiah and Doc, but it is what it is. But we wish. Now
it did work a little bit because, like I said, I Googled a second ago, like how many black head coaches are there, and then there's like 3 headlines that popped up on Google that just said the disparity of black coaches versus white coaches is being brought up again in the NBA, which hasn't really been talked about because the NBA is so pro, equality and things like that we haven't really seen it a lot. And there's a bunch of black people on the bench. They're just not in the head coaching spot. And so
right.
I just think that when it comes to opportunity, like he didn't say this when, Fred Hoiberg was hired for the Bulls when, or Billy Dowling, because they came from college and they're white and they didn't give Sam Cassell a shot. It's just that these guys aren't getting a shot for whatever reason. Mark Jackson is someone they get pull up all the time who apparently the way he dealt with management in Golden State, I don't know what Golden State has management on the rest of the league and the owners, but whatever they have said has kept owners away from him, even as successful as his coaching stint was there. Maybe we'll never know. I mean, Mark Jackson, he's still on the air, so he doesn't really talk a lot about it.
Right.
But, it's unfortunate that Stephen A went on the air and did that, but I mean, it's Stephen A.
All right, Brent. We had another great game in the NBA last night with Toronto keeping themselves in the series. Let's see what happened.
6 feet.
Boston is going to zone up here on the side out of bounds. They're going to be switching.
I like Taco Fall, baby. Let's go.
Marcus Smart's going to stay up high, taking anybody coming to the ball.
Series on the line. Anunoby got it open. It goes. Did it count is the question.
I love how he acted too.
He acted like even in the interviews afterwards, he was like, "Oh, I knew I was going to hit it."
Yeah, he was like, "I wouldn't have shot it if I didn't think I was going to hit it." That was,
no, yeah, you would have.
That was amazing. I was watching that game, and I was at Bella's practice, my daughter, and I have my phone, in front of me, and there's this guy sitting next to me. He's a Boston fan. I didn't know this at the time, right? But I'm watching, and they bring out Taco Fall, and I'm laughing because there's, they wouldn't have Taco Fall in there for any other reason other than to just wave his hands,
and he wasn't doing a good job at it.
Well, and he's got a 7'5" wingspan, and Kyle Lowry's like 6 foot, right, on a good day. And so they showed this thing of how high the ball went. The ball went as high as the shot clock.
Yeah.
Over to Anunoby, who had to take a shortened jumper to get it off in time. Yeah, it was
a quick, like, Sean Marion release.
Oh,
it was
man.
real fast.
But the guy that I was next to, he was trying to play it off like he wasn't salty about the shot and everything. What did you think? What is your thought on this shot and the whole experience of seeing that?
I mean, it's ultimate playoff basketball, right? I mean, I do believe that the Celtics didn't really defend it very well. Taco Fall, when you're that big, all you have to do is stand and wave your arms in front of Kyle Lowry. I don't know why he was dancing back and forth. So he's giving Kyle Lowry looks around his side, a lot. And it's kind of weird that he was doing that, but I mean, hey, it's still a giant guy. It was still a great pass.
Right.
And that shot was ridiculous because just think back to the OKC. We didn't get a chance to talk about that ending, did we? No, we didn't.
No.
The OKC ending, where a very similar thing happened, but since there was follow through on the jump shot, James Harden was able to block that shot. And I think the way that Anunoby released it is the reason why it didn't get blocked.
Like you said, he had a little Sean Marion in him. Right
yeah,
there,
it was so quick. It was just like a flicker, and
yeah,
that's that Sean Marion release almost.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, obviously now we have a series. Where do you think this is, huge momentum builder? Do you think they're going to be able to take this and run with it? What's your thought?
No.
Oh, snap.
Boston probably should have won that game.
Yeah. I mean, that no-look pass from Kemba, the play before, that was so sweet. Sick. I don't have that pulled up, but definitely check that out.
That was a nice play. That was a nice play. Kemba Walker, man, that was great.
Well, really, the last 30 seconds, because Van Fleet had that nice move underneath with the layup. Then they come back down with that. No timeout, which I really loved from Boston. They did not call a timeout on that Kemba play.
Right.
But then Obi won. He won it for him.
You know what? And the thing is that's the shot you want him taking.
Right.
With no follow through on the jumper, someone, I mean, the person that was defending him, he had a nice look at it, even though he had to kind of flick the shot up. But hats off to him.
Hey, NBA playoffs, baby. I love it. I love it. So, all right. So last thing we're going to talk about here is after Denver is in an all-out drag-out fight with the Jazz, they move on, and the reward for moving on was to face the Clippers.
Is that a reward?
I don't know, because I was going to pull up highlights, but then I just felt bad for Denver because they just got absolutely annihilated.
Yeah, they got stomped.
What do you think? Is this a theme? Is this what we're going to see, or did they just have dead legs from such an emotional victory over the Jazz?
Anytime you have a team like the Clippers who had multiple days to sit and rest and to focus on the team that they're going to play versus a team that had, 1 day rest. I remember after the Denver game against the Jazz, the courtside reporter, was talking, and she was like, Jamal Murray, blah, 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 blah. And she said, what do you think about having to face the Clippers Thursday night? And he goes, Thursday? We got to play Thursday? He goes, we don't get 2 days?
Nope.
It was like a shock to him. Like, what? We got to play again Thursday? Like, just that fast.
That's rough.
He found out right after the game. So I think that they are outmatched by the Clippers, and the Clippers will win the series, but it did not do them any favors to have a knockout, drag out series with the Jazz. And then right after that, and then, their girlfriends and things came in town.
They may have been a little tired.
Yeah, a little extra tired.
So just some numbers that I remember from before. I think this is a tough matchup for Denver. I think it is more to come. I think they'll get at least one. But Jamal Murray in the regular season averaged 13 points against the Clippers. And, two of those games were not close. Jokic, if they're going to have a chance, he's going to have to be the guy that really brings it, because the Clippers, Pat Beverly's back. So you put him on Murray. He comes off a screen. They switch. Guess who's there? Paul George. Oh, let's run another screen. Oh, snap. That's Kawhi. That's worse. It's not.
And one thing we didn't talk about their matchup last time was we talked about how they would have to, that Jokic would have to show up on offense, but unfortunately tired, his slow feet and being tired, the Clippers just exploited him on defense when it come to switching, and they played small, and they were doing what they wanted. Poor Jokic was just being left out to dry a lot.
It was bad. I don't think it'll get better. So,
right, before we go, I want to actually
let's see.
Get your take.
Here we go.
on the ending of the Miami, with those 2 fouls. Now, I will preface it to say that Milwaukee shouldn't have been in the first place, because that foul they called when Chris Middleton shot that 3-pointer, and who was it? Dragic. He the one that's on there too?
Dragic. Yep.
Dragic jumped straight up.
They didn't even jump.
Didn't even jump. It's just straight up. Now, I've heard some people say there was a little contact and the refs could have their blah, 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 blah. That was not a foul.
Doris Burke was like,
Yeah, Doris Burke is all on
homie.
that. That was not a foul. I've even heard like Tim Legler, he's an ex-shooter in the NBA, and Richard Jefferson, they said, yes, it could be a foul, even though it was unfortunate they called it. I'm like, no. At no point, at any point in the game, 2 minutes into the first quarter or at the end of any game, is that a foul? That's how you defend that shot textbook, is you just put both hands up and hope that he has to shoot over top of you. He didn't even jump.
Yeah,
and they called a foul. So Middleton's 3 free throws helped have Milwaukee in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get the Jimmy Butler corner shot and Giannis a little tap to try to not run over him. And then the referees call a foul. And of course, it's tie game and he wins on free throws. No one wants to see a playoff game win on free throws, but
not the refs finest moment.
No, I wouldn't think that was a foul either, honestly, in my opinion. But
yeah, so
that one was closer to a foul than the Middleton one, I will say. But
what do you think? No, they weren't. Neither one of us was a foul. It should have never got there. It was just terrible. It was terrible. But they move on, and yeah, we'll see what happens with the rest of the series. But yeah, just terrible. Refs, get out of the way. Let them play. Unless he actually runs him over. Swallow your whistle in the last minute of the game.
Oh my God. It was tied. It could have gone into overtime. It wasn't like they were killing Miami by not calling the call.
Right.
Talking about going through some things. We haven't done that in a while, but
we should do
the refs is going through some things.
There it is. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. I am Dean. That is Brent. We are Mid-Range Game. Please take a second, subscribe down below. If you're on the go, check out our podcast, available wherever you get your podcast from. Just search Mid-Range Game. And Brent, do you have an outro for us?
Be good to each other.
It's good. It's good. We could do better. I think that might be the outro too.
We could be better, people. We can be better.
All right. Later.